Human design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, human design specialist.
And I'm Haley, the human design newbie. Listen in as we explore how leaning into your authentic self is your ultimate path to success. Welcome to the Human Design Hive podcast. Let's get into it.
Hello, everyone out there. So glad to have you here today on the podcast with us. And I have an us, but it's somebody different than Haley. And I'm very excited for everyone here to meet my guest, Tracey Ferrin. Tracey and I met in a Facebook group over our mutual interest podcasting, and I soon devoured everything that she's about. Tracey is the best-selling author of the book Up Struggle. She's a cancer-thriver, which I know she's going to tell us a little bit about that. As such, she's a motivational speaker, content creator. In fact, on all the platforms, across all the platforms out there, she has over 670,000 social media followers, which is crazy. Biggest one being TikTok, because everybody loves TikTok. And TikTok is so real. And she's also started a podcast called Rock Your Kindness, which is brought to you by Love What Matters. So she's going to hopefully tell us a little bit about that too. But enough about me telling you about Tracey. Tracey, welcome and hello. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am doing good. And I am so excited because honestly, I took about a year and a half off from guesting on podcast and I'm just now coming back. And so you are officially, since that one last week didn't happen because of the internet. So you are officially my first one guesting on, coming back to the space again.
Oh my gosh. So it is a moment of first because you're the first guest I've actually brought on. So that's very exciting. Some would say it was almost meant to be. And so I gave a little bit of information there, but before I'm very excited to have you here because we're going to dig into your design a little bit, because one of the reasons I wanted to start bringing guests on is to bring people who I feel that are really doing their part, being themselves, that helps bring everybody around them kind of up, right? We're all here to be these expressions of who we are authentically, and we all have a unique purpose. We all have a unique, I believe, destiny, and we get to have a choice in that as well. And human design shows us how we're designed and really the gifts and talents and everything that we're given to then give to the world and what we're here to learn. And so I think it's really cool. When I first started really digging into human design, I would run like celebrity charts or just people I know, people you have an understanding of, and you can sometimes, well, not sometimes, you can always see, especially when people are really living their full expression, which I think you are, of how beautifully your design can be expressed. And I hope it be a way for people to have hope that if they're feeling kind of trapped or stuck, or as you talk about a lot, struggling, right? Learning how to up struggle, they can see the beauty of their design. So I wanted to share people with this community that are doing that. So tell me a little bit about yourself. I try not to talk too much.
Well, thank you. And I'm really excited. Like, I'm not going to lie, I don't know a whole lot about human design, but when we talked previously, I was like, that just sounds so dang cool. I've read books to help you better understand yourself, or, Personality Plus, or just stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a different take on it.
Totally.
And so I'm really interested in just hearing about it.
It's like astrology and Enneagram and everything, Myers-Briggs, everything on steroids. It'll tell you everything. And it makes sense and it will really land with you. So go ahead. So you are a cancer-thriver. Your story is just quite incredible. Would you mind sharing that a little bit?
Thank you. Yeah. So Guy, over in 01, don't make me do the math. I'm not the best. Okay. So in 01, we'll let everyone else do the math.
None of us know what year it is.
So we're in 22. But in 01, I was pregnant and married and had a little toddler. And in my second trimester, found out that I had cancer. And I was at the best hospital. So I live in Houston, Texas, and I am in MD Anderson's backyard.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know a whole lot about cancer back then. I was young. I mean, my uncle had passed from cancer previously 10 years before. And I knew that I was young. So I knew that he went bald and looked sick in bed, but I didn't know a whole lot.
I can't even imagine at 18. I mean, that alone that you were already a parent.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of those choices, right? That you talked about, like how your choices lead to things. And so the recommendation, especially that long ago, there was not a lot of research, if any at all, of women going under chemotherapy and then while being pregnant and then delivering a healthy baby. So I think usually back in the day, it was recommended to terminate the pregnancy. And I am a strong believer that that is an individual choice, and that there are absolutely reasons, like if you're, for me, my life could have been at risk, and that's a hard decision to make. But when I thought about it, I just kind of felt like for me that in my situation, I did not need to go down that path. And so the young, wise woman that I was, I told my doctor, I said, I got a plan. Like, this is what we're going to do. I've got it figured out. You listen to me, you wise old man. So I said, I'm just going to carry my baby to term. I'll deliver her. And then why don't you and I hook back up and we'll do just chemo stuff, right? Like, then we'll take care of the cancer. But right now I just need to go through my pregnancy.
Well, that is such a 18-year-old mindset too, because you're like, it's cancer. I got this. I got more important things to do. I'm not going to be somebody who dies. I'm just going to do this.
Well, and then you think you're invincible.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
You think that as now, if I hear cancer, I'm going to start bawling because I know the reality of what cancer is. But at 18, I didn't know the reality. No. I have no idea. And I do really think that played in my favor, mentally going into it. But I did dig my heels in and I said, I'm just not going to do that. So we've got to figure something else out. They finally realized, okay, look, if we wait till you're in your third trimester to start you on chemo, there is research and science that the babies are usually developed. They're just kind of growing and getting bigger, putting on meat and stuff. So we decided to give myself, and thankfully I was only a couple of weeks away from my third trimester, give myself a little bit of time, hit my third trimester. Then I started chemo, and she did a couple of rounds with me. And every time I did a round of chemo, it would send me into preterm pregnancy. I would start having contractions and everything. And they'd have to ship me across the street, put me full of, I believe it was magnesium, to stop the contractions. And anyway, so it was just, it was complicated, but thankfully they took her as early as they could without major complications from being a preemie, because they didn't want her to do as much chemo. And she was delivered 6 weeks early and she was 3 pounds, 10 ounces, but she was completely healthy. She had no major complications. It was just, she was tiny. She needed more time to put meat on her bones, and they can't send babies home at that size. So they waited till she was 5 pounds to send her home. So she was in the NICU for just a couple of weeks while I think I got a week off. I had a baby. They gave me a week and we did chemo again.
I can't even imagine. I have 2 children, and I just remember, and you had a talk. So how old was your first daughter at that time?
So when I was diagnosed, she was 10 months.
She was 10 months. Okay. Just having a 10-month-old and a new baby, not even putting the chemotherapy and the stress of all that on top of it. I did help my mom with her cancer journey, 12 years ago. And I was a fully formed adult, and it wasn't me going through it. It was helping my mother. And it's just so stressful. And I also remember what it was like to be a new mom, and that's just exhausting. I can't imagine the chemotherapy on top of it, but that wasn't the end of your struggles at that point, was it? Which you talk about all this in your book, Up Struggle. I think what you perfectly talk about in your book is that you have the power and control to take charge when you're struggling. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you can certainly make choices to keep going. So share a little bit about what transpired next in your life.
Yeah. So I guess I have to back up a little bit. So before she was born, after my first round of chemo, because I was married, my husband left. So I think I stayed in the hospital. My first round was 5 or 7 days because they hit me really hard and I had to be monitored with the chemo they gave me. And then we come home, and it was within the first day or two, I guess he just realized he couldn't handle it and left. And it was, I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. It was so hard. And I can talk about it now because so much time has gone by. I've healed from it. I've moved on. But it was really hard at that time. You know, like we had plans, you know, we moved in with my parents. He was going to be my caregiver. They were going to support us financially. There was just everyone, you know, everyone had their role to play in saving my life and my baby's life. Yeah. And you remove your caretaker, that flipped everyone, not just my world, but my parents' world. My mom ended up becoming my caretaker and she got fired because she was, you know, missing so much work. But so pregnant, cancer, husband leaves. And I really, you know, when you're in all of that, you don't have time to process. Yes. I don't think I did very much processing at all. I was just trying to survive.
Absolutely.
And I remember when you're done with it all, people expect you to just bounce back. You're cancer free. It's like, but
it's all over. You're fine.
That is trauma that I now have to process. Mm-hmm. And I was so traumatized by everything at such a young age. I mean, that was the hardest thing I've ever gone through and to this day, that's the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. And so my way of dealing with it was ignoring it. That if I just ignore it, act like it didn't happen, I don't talk about it, it'll all go away.
Yeah. How'd that work out?
Well, so in my book, I talk about like doing that and behaving that way is like, you know, trying to brush a bunch of trash and junk underneath your rug. Well, it creates a lump. And when you're not paying attention, you constantly trip over it.
Exactly.
You've got to pull it out, process it, put it where it belongs and deal with it. And so my annoying father was always like, you should talk about it. You should talk about it. I'm like, be quiet. It's not your story. And he's like, Tracey, you really need to talk about it. And that voice just always stuck in my head. And it really is true that the more you talk about things, the less power they have over you. You really get to process it, talking about it, and you get to take back that control, you know, and talk about it. So after hearing him always say that, I decided that to just kind of start talking about it. And one thing led to another, and I can just so freely talk about it now. And I had no idea. I mean, honestly, when he would tell me that you really need to talk about it, it's going to help others. I'm like, who cares about my story?
Yeah.
Like, who would actually care to hear about what I went through, you know? And as you grow up and mature and you learn and evolve, you realize how powerful stories are and how that's what allows to connect to one another, and how it's through stories that people can understand and digest everything. Nobody wants to hear a bunch of facts and statistics thrown at them. If you're going to give me that, tell me the story. Tell me the story, because our brains just comprehend it and can absorb it so much better than just hearing all this stuff. So, you know, but I was young, and you know, when you're young, you don't think your parents know anything. Going through that right now with my kids, right? You're like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody cares about my story. What do you mean it's going to help people? But, you know, one thing led to another, and wrote a book sharing it and talk on it. And I have just written so many articles for MD Anderson, for Love What Matters. And when I first started sharing bits and pieces of it on social media, I was shocked with how, and that's kind of what started. That's where I started sharing it, right? I was shocked with how people were responding to it.
Were you just really as an outlet sharing that, or were you with that intention of maybe, as your father said, trying to help others feel more comfortable, maybe sharing their struggles or what they were going through?
It was a whole journey because honestly, it first started with me volunteering in the cancer world. For MD Anderson, I would volunteer, and for another foundation called Can Care. And they would match you up with either people who had the same cancer or were pregnant with cancer, somewhere where you could connect. And kind of that opened my eyes a little bit and started me down that process. And then I knew that I was always supposed to be on social media. I didn't always know why, but I knew that I needed to share my life there. And that's such a big part of my life. And so it was kind of like, and I was starting to get more comfortable talking about it and sharing it. So I'm like, okay, the evolution of it was, well, let's take it to social media. And I think honestly, that did give me the confidence, because to me, it's my story. It's like, what's the big deal? Right? It's, you know, I still, when people respond the way they respond to my story, I'm like, okay, like, you know, I don't know that I fully get it, but you know, like, but okay. But, with their response and then I slowly started sharing photos. I've only done, I think, handful of times in my entire life, shared photos on social media with it because I was bald, sick, and all that stuff. But when I realized that people truly did care, and I realized that stories are powerful, and I realized that that is really how you should share stuff on social media, is through little storytelling, that how just the power of it really just opened up with the writing and Love What Matters in the book, because I realized how powerful stories were, and I realized how powerful mine was, and just the stuff I had learned from it. It wasn't even the story itself as much as it was also, I had developed like tips and tools, because I had gone through so many struggles that I was like, I need to learn to do this better, because I didn't feel like I was struggling well, even after cancer. Just going through motherhood and being a wife and insecurities and just anything that a woman goes through, I went through it and still have issues with and go through things. So I'm like, okay, because my thinking was, if I make better choices, I won't struggle as much because I'm a better human being, right? No, it does not matter. Of course, there are some struggles that what I call self-induced because of your choices.
Yes.
But those you can avoid by your choices, correct?
Yes.
But if you're a human and you live on this earth, you're just going to have them. They don't go away just because you make better choices. They change. They're different.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that, I'm like, I really sat down and wanted to reflect, and how could I do this better? And I became more intentional when I was struggling. What could I have done better to help me? Noted, next time I struggle, applied it, saw how it worked, saw how it benefited. And I just came up with this whole like formula through research and reflection that it helps me struggle better. And that's what the whole up struggle, right? Is everyone struggles. Some just do it better.
Yeah.
And I had,
go ahead.
Oh, I had just gained this knowledge, and I'm like, how selfish of me would it be if I hoarded it and didn't share this knowledge with other people? And so that's all the information you can learn in the book. Is one, I take you through my story. Of course, it has more detail than I gave you here, but take you through my story. But then I give tangible tips and tools of things that in every chapter that I do with that one struggle that helps, but the formula that I created could be used with any struggle that someone's going through.
Yes. And as I said, you make it very simple and understandable and relatable, because I didn't really learn a lot of that stuff until I was in my 30s, really. And so with my path went through yoga and meditation and all that personal development stuff. And so it comes to the same conclusion. There's just, you have the power to change the way that you do things, and that in turn can change your outcomes, basically. But I think this was a really good point too, with that background you had. I'm sitting here nodding along, smiling, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so much in her design. It's so much in her design. And that's what I love, because you can see it. So there are basic foundations of human design. There's these 5 basic energy types overall: generator, manifesting generator, projector, reflector, and manifester. So you are a generator. I'm a generator as well. And these are the people that are here on the planet to work, to build. We really like to build things, whether it's families or businesses or whatever. We have what we call this sacral energy. Okay, so you are a generator, and the sacral center is what defines it. So basically, there's this component to the human design, which is the human energy system. Are you familiar with the chakra system at all?
I know, not super familiar with
That's
it.
okay. That's all right. You don't have to be. But basically, there's these energy hubs throughout the body, and where human design's a little bit different is that there's 9 centers, and all these centers rule different processes in human energy. Like the head up here would be inspiration, ideas, connection to divine, and the sacral center, what we're talking about here, is very important in your design, because this is what makes you a generator. So I said, generators they have a lot of energy, not in the sense like hyper energy, but when we are plugged into things that we really want to do or we're really committed to, we have the energy to see it through, and you can especially if it's something you really want to be doing, you can go all day long and exhaust yourself, and the next day wake up and do it all over again. Like you're ready to go.
I just did that over the weekend.
Yeah.
Honestly, like my husband was gone all weekend and I'm not going to lie. I felt like I was stuck for a little while. And this weekend, I felt like things just were flowing and coming to me. And I spent like 12 hours in my office working on stuff, barely got any sleep, and then did it again. And I realized it's because I was doing the stuff I enjoyed.
Totally. Yeah. And that's how it should feel. Now, a generator could also use that energy. Now, to be said, there's between generators and manifesting generators, which is just another type, but it also means they have this defined sacral center, make up about 70% of the planet. We are all here to help build things, but we can also get stuck in using that energy with things that aren't correct for us, and it can exhaust us and burn out. And so we have this built-in hack called our sacral response, which when you were talking about your journey, your cancer journey, and the decisions you made for yourself and for your daughter, I feel like this was very much maybe this sacral response. So the sacral response is this gut level feeling of yes or no in your body. Yeah. And it can feel different for everybody, but basically also sometimes you might hear yourself, just randomly, you just know when things are right or not for you. Correct?
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. And that's how I explain it, is I tell people, and I always like, it's an intuition, it's a gut feeling. And it feels more, it's like, I don't use my head to make decisions.
No, it's all. Not. No. And you're not designed to. You're definitely, because if you can see on your chart nobody's designed to make decisions from their mind. And that's the beauty of human design. It shows you that your true decision-making power is in the body.
Yeah, and it's a feeling. I let that guide me, but that took me years to trust.
Oh yeah.
And because there's so many stories, and I'm sure you're in the book, where doctors would say things, doctors who have so much education, and it didn't feel right in my soul. And I would go against, and I wouldn't listen. And it always played out in my favor. And I don't say that as cocky, but because I use that feeling to guide me. Yeah. I don't care who you are, wearing a white coat or not. I'm not going to listen to you if it's not in alignment with how I'm feeling. Yeah. It doesn't feel right to my soul. Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of how that response is supposed to work. And that is what they call your authority, is your sacral is your authority, meaning you can always, always trust that. And you have evidence of that because it has worked out in your favor. As I'm sure there may have been times you overrid that feeling for outside pressures or whatever expectations people might have put on you. When you kind of don't follow that, it's not that it always works out badly, but you may have committed yourself to things that didn't work out or weren't enjoyable or really didn't move you forward, honestly.
And I've learned to take my time to make decisions and don't do it in the moment, to really think it through. And am I still having that feeling, or was it just a spur of the moment thing? Yeah. I mean, I honestly have spent a lot of time trying to figure that out.
Now I want to let everybody know that you're defined only in the sacral center and the one above it, the G center. The rest of it is very open and undefined is what it's called, where all the white centers are. And that means that's where you are absorbing energy from others, amplifying it and reflecting back. And it's basically the places where you're learning from others and through your relationships. And, I think you're living so aligned. I'm not going to say that you don't have your blind spots. We all do.
Right.
But really, when you talk about taking your time to make decisions, it pretty much always aligns with your first instinct, which is that gut yes or no. So honestly, you really don't have to take that long because you are designed to trust it, that present yes or no. The solar plexus for you is undefined. For me, it's defined. I'm emotional solar plexus, which means I kind of do have to take time. I have to think on it. I will say yes to things and then the next day might regret it. Or, I can get very excited. It's emotional wave. And half of us are emotionally defined. Half of us are not. And so you can experiment with that a little bit if it makes you feel better to think out. But really, you can trust that decision because you can see it's probably always been a yes.
Well, and I use that feeling on when I'm in the presence of people too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And maybe you can explain it better, but I just based off the energy, I feel like I don't need you. I don't need someone to talk to me for hours. I can just feel.
Yes, you can
feel.
You literally can.
Like I can. And it's even like, I won't say who, because I don't want to cause any issues, but there's a couple in the limelight media that a lot of people don't like. I like them. I support them. And I just want to have my own thinker. I don't like being told what to do. I will develop my own opinion. I don't develop opinions on people based on someone else's opinion. But because I've seen the way, and I watch people's body language and the way they look in someone else's eyes, and do they seem sincere? And we all know the media can spin anything. Like, we don't got it. Like, come on, we weren't born yesterday. They can spin any narrative. And so many people hate this couple. And I'm like, I don't see it. I don't get it, because I'm using that gut. I'm using that. I'm not buying it.
No.
And at the same time, I'm like, but they're human. They're not perfect. Because me and my husband debate this couple because we have different views on it.
Yeah.
And I love debating it. And I said, if you were under a microscope, don't you think people would find a few things wrong with you too? Right. And so I use that gut feeling for like relationships. Do I want to build that relationship? What does my gut say? How did I feel around them?
Yeah. That's so interesting, because with this openness, all this openness in your chart, definitely you are incredibly intuitive and empathetic. Like you are feeling people's energies when you're around them, especially with that open solar plexus. And that is our emotional definition, they call it. And this is the human like moodiness and feelings. It's not the center for like love or anything like that. That's the G center, which is above, which is really interesting. It's the identity and the self. And that definition there means like you are always moving in the direction of what's best for you, but not in this selfish way. This is the best use of your energy is that. And so when you're talking about having your own opinions about these people, it's like your interactions with them, you can really get a feel for them that's genuine. So you can feel that energy from. So you are kind of, with all that openness, you do have that ability to do that. And especially with that solar plexus and this other one right here above it, the will center being completely open, which I do as well, is you can really plug into that feeling of value and worth and how those people see themselves and how they experience it. And so it is a little superpower for you. And so what I also wanted to point out a few things here is so I know you don't know anything about this, so real quickly I can show you that basically human design is based on the time, date, and place of your birth. And that's what these numbers on this side of the chart represent. On the left side, the red numbers represent about 3 months before you were born, where the planets were. So on the right is where all the planets were at the moment you were born, just like astrology, the natal chart. And these are all the planets. And it's basically taking astrology, the chakra system, those energy centers, and the Chinese I Ching. It's really taking the general human archetypes. Okay. And that's what these are an expression are. All these numbers on the chart and everything are really just our expressions of certain archetypes in the human experience. It's everything that we are as humans and what we experience. So the numbers all there mean these are the expressions that you are most expressing. So the most important ones for you to really focus on right now, because I think it really, really shines through in who you are and how you're expressing yourself, which is designed to do, is the top 4 numbers on the chart. These 4 numbers in human design are what they call an incarnation cross. And it can get very technical, but basically it is sort of this whole theme throughout your life, the energy that you bring into the world, that is your gift to the world. And you're always expressing it, whether you realize it or not. Just like anything else with us humans, there's shadow sides and then there's the light side, right? So we have a choice. Like I said, this is the blueprint of who you are, and you get to choose how to express it. And I think you've done this so beautifully. And so as you were talking about your journey, realizations you've come to. And I especially wanted to circle back to the story part, because I clearly got a feeling of that by reading your book, was that you definitely learned, hey, this happened, but I can either wallow in it and be a victim, or I can see what can be learned from it.
Absolutely.
Fair assessment.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I mean, you have to. I mean,
and you know what? I call it personality or my human design. Being a victim is just not in my cards. It's not in my DNA.
Not.
I refuse to be a victim to anyone or anything, or develop a victim mindset. Like it's just, that's too hard. That I can't go there. And so it's like, okay, if I'm not going to do that, if I'm not going to buy that, what can I do? And it was learn. Don't let these struggles go to waste. Let them help you develop and become better and stronger, and then take that knowledge and help others. Have more compassion and empathy. So, and you know, and I've had crazy struggles since. And one in the book, I talk about it in 2020. I could have had, we had another cancer scare.
Yes.
And I about lost it for about a week. I was crying in a mess. Don't remarry. Don't, please. You can't remarry if I die. I just lost it. And I was like, pull it together, woman. So like, even though I came up with this and I have this knowledge, I'm still a human. Absolutely. But it's nice to have this belief and this understanding, because I really am I am someone who I can snap myself out of stuff. I just have always been able to. I have my moment, I have my pity party, and then boom, let's go. I got it out. But girl, like, what are we going to do moving forward? Because I don't feel good.
And you know? And you have to, it's a process. And each time something comes, and it will happen. But yes, so I wanted to touch on those four main energies, because these pretty much comprise about 75% of everything that you're expressing are in these four gates that we call it, in these four archetypes. And so what's interesting when you look at them and the meaning that's behind them, so I can just give you a little snapshot here of what these four gates kind of represent. And I think it's going to blow your mind a little bit.
Oh, goodness. Here we go. I tell you, I really have been looking forward to this.
Oh, good.
Like I have. I'm excited.
Yeah. So you basically were designed to explore and learn and teach about the importance of stories and the stories we tell ourselves to set the tone and direction for your life. Okay. And that is this gate right here, 33, gate 33, the throat center. This is how you communicate, right? So it's baked in. You're here to help people see the patterns in their own stories and how they may be rationalizing, and like you said, that victim mentality of rationalizing, well, I'd like to do more, but I can't, or I would like to be better, but I have this going on. You know, you help them see the patterns in their stories and how they are rationalizing these things and settling for less. Because that's ultimately what happens to people, is you're really telling yourself why you can't have what you want.
Yeah.
Right. And that's this gate 44 here, which is about patterns. And there's also in this spleen center here, there's these baked in fears. And there's also this fear there of patterns, negative patterns, possibly repeating themselves, gets people stuck mode. So you help them see how maybe they're stuck, right? And you need to change the narrative, change the story. You have a natural sensitivity and intuition, which we talked about, to see these parts where they're rationalizing. And that's this gate here, gate 19, which is your unconscious son. This is a gate of sensitivity, and it's also sensitive to animals. Did I hear you say you have a lot of pets?
And I also want to live on a farm, because I love animals. They make me feel, they put me at ease. It's almost therapeutic. Like when I lay with my dog, I feel better. I don't know why. I feel better when I go and pet a horse. I'm like, it's therapy. It feels like therapy, honestly.
Yeah. That gate 19 has a lot of communication with animals there, and animals. Yeah, definitely.
And yes, I do have a lot of animals. We have 2 dogs and 2 cats that live in my house.
Nothing wrong with that. And then also, lastly, this gate 24, your main sun energy, is you see the potential in others, and you know how to help them change their stories. As we said, stop playing small, help them release these patterns. This is called the gate in quantum human design, called gate of blessings. And so it is this energy of like really finding the meaning behind things and seeing the blessings in things. And then, so when you look at all those put together, you can see I was excited to bring this to you because like you are fully doing exactly this without even knowing anything about your human design, right?
Yeah.
This is just you following that sacral response in each moment has led you to these choices that were like, because sacral responds to yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. And that's also how people can help you make decisions. Yes or no. They have to ask you yes or no questions a lot of times. Because if somebody says, this is what I always say, what would you like to do today, Tracey? And you might be like, well, I don't know. I have lots of things. And it'd be like, well, do you think you're going to take time to, I don't know, go to the grocery store today? Like, well, no. I don't know if that helps. I mean, those are very basic things, but yes or no questions, which I'm interested. Do you find in your children, you have four children?
I do.
Do you see it? I mean, just start watching them now. We don't know their designs. We haven't run any of those, but you can see who responds better to open-ended questions, maybe, or yes or no questions to get to the meat of the matter, because that's really a generator tell a lot of times. If somebody seems indecisive, maybe you're just asking them the question the wrong way.
Yeah, I had never thought of that.
Yeah, because one energy type is called a projector, which my daughter Haley, who's on here with the podcast with me, is a projector. And projectors do not have defined sacral centers. So when you have these open, undefined areas, these white areas, like I said, we're really receiving energy from others, and we can borrow that energy from others, but it's not really ours. We're just learning how these people express that energy. It's a learning experience for us. And with projectors, since they don't have that yes or no response innately, they can borrow it sometimes, but they kind of have to process differently. You have to ask them how they feel about things or what they're thinking, and then they can kind of talk it out a little bit more. So just fun to play around with sometimes.
Yeah.
If you don't know people's designs. But also another really important part of design is what we call your profile. And profile here, you'll see it says you're a 2-5. So your profile is derived by these numbers here at the top, this 2 and this 5. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know why, but it's basically like, as a generator, that's the character you play. The role you play is this profile. So it's how you best learn and how you kind of interact in the world. And as a 2-5, the 2 part of your personality is what they call the hermit, but this is also what they refer to as the natural learner. And so you do require, it says hermit because you do kind of require time alone to yourself to kind of go through your own process. Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. Yep. I love people, and I get excited when like this. I love doing this, but I have to be alone at times. I really do.
That alone time is how when you were describing how you reflected and you went back on looking at your journey and how you made those choices and the things you detailed in your book about how you got through this and how you think other people can do this, how you did that. That's very much an expression of that energy, because the 2 is that I got to figure out my own way. And I don't know really why anybody be interested in this. Exactly what you said about your dad saying that to you. You're like, what's special about me? I don't understand why anybody would care. But your energy in the world does exactly that. You spend time alone. You're kind of in your own process. You think it's just about you. And the more you can only hide out for so long, because people will start to draw you out. They need to know what it is you know. And that second side, or that second number, the 5, shows that you are a teacher, you are a leader, and what you know is meant to impact people on a large scale. It's not just your immediate community. It is literally figuring out new and different ways of seeing things, approaching things, and then bringing it to the world, expressing it, and it helps people in that way. And I mean, that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. And so it's important to know that, and I don't know if you ever have this, you've probably worked through this some already, is honoring that alone time of where you go through your own process, because that's really your gift to the world is to be, which is probably what you do through your writing and reflecting and everything.
Well, I feel like that's what I did this weekend was my husband. So I've got out of all my 4 kids, 3 are adults and one's 14. So my life's different than when they were all itty bitty, needing me. And I'm enjoying the freedom. But my husband took off for the weekend to go hunting and he took our youngest, right? So that left me with 3 adults, which means they all have their own lives, work and everything. And that alone time, I tell you what, I was like, can you go out of town again? Because and I love my husband, but I had such an amazing weekend being alone. I created 3 journals. I'm working on a children's book. I have a coloring book idea. I've already got, and my 3 journals and my coloring book are on KDP. They're in review right now. And I'm literally in the process of my children's book. And all of that came through this weekend because I was alone and I was just able to like work through and process. Cause I was telling you, I was feeling stuck before this weekend. Like, what's my next step? What's this? But that alone time, I was able to, in one weekend, I was able to accomplish so much. I'm like, please tell me when you go down to town again, honey, because I need that again.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because, when we talked before off camera, that stuck, because we talked last week, right? And you were saying that. And I was, that's what I got excited because I was being able to go look at your design then, because that's being a generator. That's also something that occurs sort of on the regular. So generators with this response, it leads us to things, right? Okay. Sometimes it leads us to things that will run its course, like a skill you might have to master. And you kind of hit this dead end in energy of like, well, what's next, right? But sometimes, and that might mean that, okay, that thing has run its course. It was valuable, but maybe something else will show up. Wait and see, because you have to wait to respond to life. I don't think I said that, and I need to say that to you. Generators need to respond to life. And by that, it means things outside of yourself. So you might have an idea or a desire or something that you want to do, but before you take action, something outside in your outside environment needs to show up. And it could be like a billboard you see, or something you hear on a podcast, or something someone actually says to you or brings to you. That's that confirmation of, oh yes, this is the right direction. And you can kind of, so it's magic, really a lot of the generator process is magic of being able to be like, oh yeah, what's life going to bring me next? But you have to be patient and let it come to you.
Oh my goodness. Patient. Does it say something about how generators are not patient?
Absolutely.
It should tell
because
you
we have all this energy and we feel like we should be doing something with it.
Yes.
And we're like, oh, but I should be doing. And the worst thing we can do is initiate something that hasn't really been asked for yet. Like we have to respond to life. And then that's that green light.
It's the craziest thing. Because before you and I spoke, I kind of had a meltdown to my husband and I'm crying. I feel stuck. And he's like, oh, are we there again? You don't know what to do with your life? I'm like, yes, I don't know. He's like, honey, you go through this 1 to 2 times a year where you just like, because I like learning. I like progressing. I like working on projects. And when I feel there's a dead end and I don't know what to do next, that's a hard space for me to be in. Hard for me. And then I feel lost and like, what am I doing with my life? And am I making right choices? And, but then it's like, but I also feel like I can't force in it. I can't force that time. I can't speed it up. I can't force it. And my husband told me, he's like, honey, you go through this all the it and you just have to be in it. And because a door always opens, something always happens, but I've always felt that it was something that I couldn't force to happen. It had to just happen. And I had to just be ready there for that opportunity and to see it.
Exactly. And
but it's frustrating.
It is. Oh, you know what? It's frustrating. That is the not self theme of the generator is frustration. Like when you are aligned and in the flow and it's satisfaction, you're so satisfied. My gosh. Job well done. Everything's right in the world. Like it's that internal feeling that inner glow.
Yes.
But more often I realized when I found out I was a generator, how much I use that word frustrated. I'm so frustrated. It's so frustrating because it's like it's like I need to do something, but I don't know what it is. Right. And so generators have this, what they call stair step learning curve, which you just described perfectly. So you're led in a certain direction, you're gathering the skills, and then generators just have these plateau moments in life. And a lot of generators, not most, but a lot of times this is where we quit too soon. This is where we haven't evaluated, okay, is this something I'm still really, like if you're trying to master a skill or a new talent or something, like a good example is, say, you wanted to learn how to play tennis. Something came to you, is like somebody says, hey, you want to go play tennis? Yes, and you might learn and gain skills, but there might be a choice point where you're like, yeah, I thought I want to do this and I learned some things. It was fun. I did that, but I don't know. I'm not feeling it anymore. Right. That might be, well, it's not for you anymore. Or it could be, you just get to this point where you do really good and you're learning things. And then one day your game just sucks and you can't do anything right anymore. And you're frustrated and you're like, maybe I shouldn't play tennis anymore. But in your heart, it's like, no, I really love this. I just got to chill out, give myself a break, maybe take a break, not play tennis for, a week or more, see what happens, come back. And then you'll find this new level of mastery after that, because basically this plateau is where you are gathering energy for that next leap up, So like I said, it was a stair step. It's not a gradual, steady. It's a up plateau, right? So that means your energy is gathering for that next big jump, which you did just express beautifully by, you're like, oh my God, I had time alone. I was patient. I didn't try to force anything. And then my husband went out of town for the weekend and suddenly you just like, boom, exploded.
Yeah. And I think you just described, like, I told you I took a break from interviewing for about 1.5 years, right? Mm-hmm. I was doing so many podcasts talking about my story to the point where I was sick of hearing myself talk, sick of hearing my story, sick of because people are so drawn to my story, my cancer story. But like, I can't tell it one more time because I became robotic and I never want to become robotic. I never want that. I want it to be genuine. I never say it in the exact same way. I want it to just be said how it comes out. And so if you listen to 10 podcasts, you're going to find different information about my story because I don't want to do it that way, And so I stepped back and took a break from a little bit from social media and speaking and writing and all this stuff. And I went and I became a senior manager over boutique or some boutique fitness studios. And I developed a lot of skills and I learned and I knew, you're done. The road is done. You've hit a dead end. There's no more that you can either learn or help other people. You're done. And I knew in my heart, I was done. And that has led me back to everything I'm doing now. And like you said, I've been able to, on a greater scale, to do things, where I felt I needed to step away, but coming back to this feels so much in alignment. And this is what I was meant to do.
Yeah. Yeah, we use generators are collecting these skills along the way that help. Nothing is wasted because we're led to, and sometimes we're led to things that don't make sense. Like, why am I doing this? I know that I was reading in your book, you did Body, which helped get you into social media, right? And learning those skills. And there's so many things. I've always felt like a little bit of a directionless, what am I doing with my life person? Because I would go this direction and then that direction. And now once human design has walked its way in, it's like, okay, you're finally ready for this. Cause I actually discovered human design several years ago and saw my chart and saw all this stuff. And I was like, what the hell is all this stuff? I have no clue. But there was something in there that just kept calling me back. I would keep looking at it occasionally and I felt like I needed some kind of direction. I didn't understand it, but it was telling me something about myself that I felt innately. And, it shows me a lot of myself. I've got a lot of what they call individual circuitry. Like a lot of my circuitry is about my own process and being with myself and learning. I'm what they call line one as a researcher. When I was talking about, I read your book. You said you don't think everybody might read your book before they talk to you. I was like, no, I have to know what I can before I talk to you.
And I'm the same way. Design. I have to research. I stalk my guest. Like I want to know as much as I can know about you, or I just don't feel at ease. Yeah. I'm like, I'm the same way. And as you're talking, I'm like, we are multi-passionate skill collecting women.
Yes. Yes. And we don't know what they are. When you were describing your working in the fitness studio, I had, for years, I thought the thing that I was supposed to bring into the world, and I did bring it into the world, as I was a jewelry designer, and I worked with gemstones and the healing properties of stones, and even, acquired skills of silversmithing. I learned business skills of wholesaling it across the country. That's what got me online, was because you have to, find a way to showcase your work. And I loved it for so long, but there just got to a point a couple years ago. Well, it might be more than a couple years ago. It's over 5 or so years ago, where same thing. I just realized it had run its course. I had still been trying to push it up the hill because I thought, no, this is my thing. This is what people know me for. This is it, right? But it got so damn hard to sell anything. I mean, when I first started, I was like, nobody's ever going to like my stuff. It's not, I needed that validation. But then I soon saw, yes, people loved it. People bought it. All over the world bought it. But it got to that point where it's just like, this is not it. This is just not it. And it was hard to walk away from that. And I still have people say, hey, do you still do that? And there's this part of me is like, yeah, but I feel it in my heart. No, I don't do that anymore.
And that's why I don't think, people take a job and they're in there for 5-10 years and they get fired. Like, oh, such a waste. I'm like, but was it?
No.
Because think about all the things you learned, or even with marriage, I wasted 15 years of my life, but did you?
No, nothing.
Because didn't you have 2 kids? Didn't you learn because of his job that took you somewhere else? You now have your best friend. And so it's that perspective that we really do we get to choose our beliefs. I just prefer to choose stuff that makes me feel better, not just because it makes me feel better, because it serves me. And I've seen both sides of the fence. So like even in struggles, every struggle we go through, we can learn and grow and those are skills, and then teach someone if we want, but that's why I don't believe that marriages were a waste that didn't work out, that job was a waste that didn't work out. I feel like people believe that struggles were for nothing when you don't learn from them.
Absolutely.
And I am not going to go through something and not learn, because even when I go through some other hard stuff, sometimes that is the only thing that keeps me grounded. Absolutely. I know that I will be better for this. I know that I will learn something that I need to learn. And then I know that I will get to turn around and help somebody else walk that path that I just got done walking myself.
Absolutely.
Sometimes that's the only thing that keeps me grounded, not losing it all.
Right. Well, and that's like you said, you talk about the 3 different types of struggles you're going to have in life. And that last one being life. You cannot control what is going to come your way, but you can control how you react to it and how you move through it. Because one thing, like I said, with all the openness that you do have in the chart, you are going to be drawing experiences to you and people to you to learn through. And you're doing it so well. It gets easier as you go on, and you may be driven in certain directions to learn new ways of handling things, but you've already got the aspect of like, there is importance here. It's not like, oh, what's happening to me sucks. Yes, it does. Of course, you're human. It sucks. Right.
Yeah. Acknowledge it. It's not fun. Acknowledge it so that I have to acknowledge it so I can move on.
You have to, because you have to also say, you can't just live in denial that things aren't happening to you. You have to say, yes, this is happening. Now what do I do with it? Because I don't see any other way either, because I believe that that's what we're here for. It's just to learn from ourselves and each other. And I also wanted, because I could talk to you forever, but I know we're going a little bit long. So I wanted to bring it around because I did want you to talk a little bit about this podcast that you started. It's pretty new, right? You started it in September.
Yeah, we launched in September, and I think we've got 13, 14 episodes as of today out.
Yeah. And so what I think is really cool, because I talked about this in the last episode I just did, that about people moving into the holidays and holiday dynamics between relationships and everything, and how we can navigate that. But it comes from a lot of work I've done personally on really around forgiveness, but also understanding that everything that we do and every person that we meet is, I believe, divinely guided. We're going to meet the people we're going to meet, even if it's the person in the elevator or it's your mother. Like these are the people that we, as I said, human design shows us we're going to draw people to us, right? And we don't always know why. And this, I think, really aligns with your podcast because you're talking about stories of people showing their kindness. And I think that's really one of the most impactful things we can do is we are these expressions of love and to share that love. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how that came about and what your podcast is about?
Yeah. So I'll try and give a high level overview of how it came about. So in 2020, because I was bored and that's when everyone got on TikTok, right? And I knew how to use social media. I went over there very intentionally. I knew, again, I always wanted to uplift, right? Women, mainly women. But so I get over there and I'm like, okay, but I know it needs to be different. At the time, TikTok was really a bunch of dancing. I mean, it really was. Okay, how can I dance and grab people's attention? But captions are, you just lifting people up. So I'm visually grabbing them because I'm being crazy and dancing, but it's a positive message. So when I got over there, instantly I started growing. Like it wasn't hard. I started growing instantly. Then I had a video that April and we went to Wendy's and, we're going through the drive-through and this guy is so cheerful. And I do like a what? I'm with my husband and like, let's just be honest, unless you're going through Chick-fil-A, you just sometimes don't get that kind of cheer. And this guy was just so cheerful. I was like, what is going on? And I promise you, I'm not this person. I am not the person who just goes around recording people in public because it's weird. And I wouldn't want someone doing it to me. So I don't do that. And so I get my phone out and my intuition said, record him. And I'm like, no, that's so weird. How awkward. I'm not that person. You need to record him. You need to record him. Fine, I'll do it. And that's where I listen to my gut, even if it doesn't make sense or whatever logic.
Totally.
But he knew I was, and I get my phone out. It's like right in his face. I'm like, and I tell him, I just have to record you and all your joy. And it was like a 27-second clip. Wow. I think not even 30 seconds. And I posted on Facebook. People loved it. And this was in April. Okay. So I'm on TikTok and I have this thought, that video that you put of that Wendy's guy, you need to put that here. Like just let other people on a different platform see his joy. I throw it up there I just throw it up there sloppy, like choose joy, like not thinking anything, just trying to put some content out there that will lift other people and bring a smile to people's face. Because that's really what I like to do. I wake up and that video just took off. I literally posted it when I went to bed, wake up, check my email, all this stuff. And people over there in 2020, there was something called the Venmo challenge. And people were saying, do the Venmo challenge. And I'm like, oh, well, feedback, right? If so many people are saying this and you're willing to give them money, fine, let's do it. We raised over $40,000 in 1 week for this man, not because he was sick, not because anything devastating, because of pure joy. And people could see how genuine and happy this guy was. And they just wanted to do something for him. And that really exploded my TikTok account because I turned it into a story. Yep. I took the viewers on the journey with me and I turned it into multiple videos. I turned it into, bringing him to my house to feed him, to have dinner with him when really we were presenting the fake check that I made. Behind the scenes, I gave him the money, but presenting the fake check. The owners of Wendy's corporate caught wind of this. Oh. So they caught wind of it. They ran it as an article. The owners who owned that certain location, they caught wind of it. They asked if they could be there for the check presentation. And I said, of course you can be there. We went live, I made it this big thing because again, storytelling connects, right? And I knew how I needed to present it. And that just led into one thing into the next. I create this hashtag called Rock Your Kindness because I feel like I'm a kind person. And I was doing good things on my platform and I wanted everyone to know what I was about. There's trolls, there's drama, there's this and that. I have no part in that. I don't want that. This is what I stand for, kindness. I just wanted something cute and catchy. Rock your kindness, going for it. So I start putting that hashtag on everything. One thing leads into an next. We ended up raising almost $90,000 in 1 week for a guy who needs heart surgery.
Wow.
Or he would die. And because he had heart failure, he couldn't get a job to allow him to have insurance, right? So it's this hamster wheel. And I have been there. Yeah. I was so sick when I had cancer. I couldn't get a job to help, but they denied benefits to me. You can work. I'm like, I cannot work. I am in bed, living in bed. So I got that. And we helped a little bit, couple thousand here for that person, couple thousand there. And so I was putting that hashtag on everything, rock your kindness. Then I've actually so that's where the name comes from, as I created that hashtag. And then I have also been a writer for Love What Matters for several years now. And it started with my cancer story. And when I shared my cancer story with one of their editors over there, I actually developed a relationship with him through email.
Are they a blog? Are they
They are they're a website, right? They're a first person telling storytelling platform. They're on Facebook. They have, I think, 8 million followers on Facebook. They're on Instagram. Yeah. Of course, they have a website, and we are in the process of, expanding the brand, which is why we're doing
telling stories as well. That's what they let
all
people
storytelling. It is all storytelling, but the way that these stories are told, there's a theme. It's something hard happened, and then something good came from it. There was you're right. And I love that, because that's what I'm about. Yeah. It's not this victim thing, but they're being honest and telling these hard stories, but there's something, the outcome is a lesson, whatever. I can link arms to that kind of thing, right? Because that's what I'm about. And so because I was a writer for them, the guy said, he's like, will you be a writer for us? And I said, sure, I'd love to. And so I've done multiple articles for them, but I don't think any article has ever done as good as my cancer story. And the founder, Colin, decides, let's take some of these stories and let's turn it into like a podcast. Like, let's interview these people. Let's do all this stuff. And he asked some of his team, who would y'all recommend? And they all said Tracey. And so through that recommendation, he reached out to me, asked me if I'd want to do this. And I said yes. And through some back and forth and figuring out, we initially had a different name for it with a different vibe. And I think, we realized that's probably not going to work for this one. And so I pitched him Rock Your Kindness and why I wanted to do it. And so with Rock Your Kindness, instead, it's not Rock Kindness or the Kindness Podcast. I really like it, Rock Your Kindness, because I believe that we all show up in this world and we uniquely, in our own way, share kindness, right? And I talk about this in one episode. I've got a girlfriend down the street that she's always baking stuff and dropping it off at my doorstep. That's her way of showing kindness. It could be a birthday, a holiday, someone had surgery. It doesn't matter. She never misses a day. That's how she does it. For me, I feel like it's through my online content, my writing, my words, my storytelling. I try to lift others. That's how I show up. Doesn't mean that I haven't baked for people and dropped it off at the doorstep. It's just not my way that I'm always going to show it. So Rock Your Kindness is not one type. Everyone, all these guests have in some way or another, whether they were the one giving the kindness or the one receiving on the receiving end of it. And so it's just highlighting these extraordinary stories by ordinary people. Yeah. It's to show that you don't, it doesn't take a special person. It doesn't take, it's ordinary people showing up in this world and expressing their type of kindness in their own unique way.
Yeah. And the impact that they can have, because I think with the rise of social media, and especially, you see these large followings and you see things happen, they're like, oh, she does amazing things. But it's like, we've forgotten how important those small daily interactions that, like you said, we as humans with each other, just day to day, that people may never know about, but it really makes an impact on someone else. You have no clue. I was listening to your podcast that forgive me her name, the woman who has the TikTok account that shares uplifting things, and how many messages she was getting that just sharing a video was helping people through some of the darkest times in their lives and kept them going, that there is like faith in humanity, restoring that faith in humanity. That's, I believe, what it was.
Yeah.
And because when we look at social media and we compare ourselves to everybody, and, you know, we always think, oh, I can't have the kind of impact that person's having, or whatever. And I think this is where our worlds link up too, is because I'm very passionate now about, through human design, being able to show people, no, you have a very unique purpose, because there's literally millions and millions and millions of different combinations. Like pretty much everybody's design is unique to them. And it has a purpose, and it doesn't have to be always on this grand scale. It is how you interact with every single person you meet and the choices that you decide to make. And I think it's really cool that your website is highlighting, like you said, those everyday people. You know, the other one I really love is the grocery store, the woman who's having a very hard time, and just the kindness of a grocery clerk, which is, I love that episode of just helping her in the parking lot pick up some groceries, you know, and it's just like, I love that story. I highly recommend. I don't remember what episode is, but I'll link it in the show notes so they can definitely, I love that one so much.
I'm not going to lie. It's one of my favorites. And that interview with her was one of my favorites, because she is an extraordinary woman.
I mean, she was just so open with what she was going through in that moment, in that day. And if you've ever been a mom, I think you could highly relate to that moment she was going through. So I'm very excited that you are starting this platform with so much support behind you. And now I hope you feel even more equipped to keep going, that this is definitely part of your life's work, is sharing these stories with people and how they can choose kindness and rock their own kindness. Yeah.
And some of these stories are they, you know, it'd be as simple as, you know, what I talk a lot about is when we're running errands. I'm guilty of it myself. I got things to do, places to go. I'm on a time, or, you know, like I got things to do. And so you get in your head and you go from Target to the other store, to the other store, and you don't really see others. If we could just slow down, look behind us when we're opening the door and see if we need to hold it for someone behind us. Just stop, slow down, and see other people. Like before we hopped on, I went to the corner store to grab a drink really quick. And I'm not like an alcoholic drink. I'm not that, but just to grab me a drink. I promise. I don't even drink alcohol, and this is what I mean by so simple. We want to highlight these ordinary people doing great things. And sometimes it's creating the charity. They should be honored as well. We really want to express that it's truly the simple things. As I was coming out, a lady was going in and she just said, "Good morning." She made eye contact and said, "Good morning." And it made me feel good. And I said, "Good morning" back. It is simple. It is free. Kindness does not have to cost anything. It is a smile. I highly recommend people do research on the impact that a simple smile can have on yourself and others. You are perceived as more beautiful when you smile. And so it's just like these simple things. I think the reason that maybe it's going slightly unnoticed is because people don't truly know the impact that it's had, these small things, the impact that it's having. And when we don't know the impact that it's having, it's hard to keep doing something. It's like, do the research, but then also reflect. How did it make you feel when somebody said good morning? Somebody held the door for you. When you dropped something with a baby on your hip and they bent down to pick it up. You can't tell me it does not make you feel good and make you feel seen. So if it makes us feel this way, why don't we do that? And I was talking to my good friend yesterday, actually Russ, we were talking about stuff and helping each other. And he said, we were talking about kindness and stuff he was working on. And he's like, kindness revolution. I said, oh my gosh, I love that. Absolutely. I might steal that from you, Russ. Kindness revolution. Kindness is cool. You know, I was talking to somebody else, and we were talking about people who smile and people who are kind. They have a better chance at being promoted, which means you make more money. Hello.
We're also taught that, you know, to be taken seriously, you have to be serious, or you know, to succeed, you have to be this like driven one thing, but that's not really the people that do get the attention. It's how they make others feel. And I also think along that lines of not knowing the impact you have, I think I told you a little bit, a lot of what informs my learning is this text in Course in Miracles, but it says that these interactions are meant to occur. those are, and especially as a generator type, or actually any of the types, we're all here to learn from each other. And you never know what door you open as well, literally and figuratively, but through that, just looking up and connecting with the person in front of you. Yes, it could just be a smile or kindness, but even a spoken word. Sometimes these are where opportunities come from that you might not have ever received. And when you're not open and available to them as, like, hey, I see you, I see you, you see me, that's when the love, the kindness, the God, the divine, whatever you want to call it, has the opportunity to use you, the two people in front of each other, as a means for something magical to happen. It could be small, it could be large. You just never know. And so it's like, it is self-serving in that way to be like, hey, what are we going to do today? What's going to happen to me today? And something I say to myself every day, which is something I was taught, is the prayer of, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? And what would you have me say, and to whom? And that, just to have that, like, let me be the highest possible service to whoever I come in contact with today. It's hard. I'm not going to lie. We all, like you said, we all have our moments, but practicing it, just keep practicing it and being like, as you go throughout your day today, we could challenge everybody now listening. Try to make eye contact with people in front of you, around you. Just see what happens, right?
Just smile at someone, say
see
hi.
How you feel. And you'll
compliment.
It's a muscle, you can get to.
Oh, and I'm so glad that you said that, because kindness is a skill. And we like to collect skills, but as any skill, you have to practice it to get better. So that's nice to know that people aren't just born, you're either nice or you're either kind or you're not. No, you choose to be kind. And if you want to be really good at it, then you keep practicing it. You realize how good it feels. And humans just want to connect. When you're talking about this, like, tough, to be taken seriously, you have to be serious. I will never be that person.
Yeah.
Because humans want to connect, and it's hard for me, at least, it is hard for me to connect with people who are guarded and serious. And I don't like surface conversation. Let's get to the meat of it. Well, let's go deep. I told you, I have a hard time with the introduction, because I just want to jump in and start having a conversation. Every time starting the podcast is the part of the episode where I'm just supposed to be like, I have a hardest time with that. I just want to get into it. It's like, let's just dive in. And it's so funny because Eric, he owns a producer company that's doing our podcast. And I've developed a good relationship with him through it all. And he's like, you're not, and it wasn't a dig, but he's like, you're not polished. You're not like a lot of other people who are doing this that are polished. And I told him, I said, I will never be polished, because that's who I am. Yeah. And he wasn't saying it as in it's a bad thing, but he was like, that's what's going to attract people to this podcast. Oh,
yeah, it's genuine. Yeah.
Because you're not
slick.
Yes.
But it doesn't feel like half-assed either. It's not like a dig, like you said. It's just like, you're a real person.
I'm a real person. I let things come out. I say things. The other day I said something like, was he talking out of his butt? You know what I mean? She's like, he was. Because that's who I am. So I will never be that corporate. I guess we could corporate polished type of person. But that's what makes me me.
Yeah.
And so I like that. And I said, Eric, I will never be polished. I will never turn into that person. This is it. And he's like, no, I think it's great. So, and we have two formats over there, right? Some is, I'm reading these stories, and I also do the interview. And so I read some story, and then you hear from them from the interview, and they're cutting and splicing it together. You can kind of get me reading, but their perspective, maybe more detail. And then we have another format or layout that it is, just more of an interview. Maybe there wasn't a story written. And so we don't just do Love What Matters stories. Anything good, I might come across something on the internet or on social media, and I'm like, oh, I want to interview that person. There's no story. And that's why we have the two layouts with more just interview style. And I like doing both. And the feedback so far is people seem to like both as well, kind of mixes it up a little bit. And I think those interview style, you get a little bit more personality maybe. From both sides.
I'm looking forward to listening to some more, and everybody definitely needs to go check it out. And like I said, I could definitely talk to you all day, but
I know it's been fun.
We probably have to wrap it up, but that's okay.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll talk again for sure. And as your platform grows even more, I'm sure we'll have even more to talk about. It's been very exciting. So I want to thank you so, so much for being here and for talking with me today. And is there anything else you want to share? Actually, so your podcast is Rock Your Kindness, and I'll also put other contact information in the show notes. But where do you prefer to interact with people? What's the favorite way for people to find you?
So I know I went over to TikTok and I was all about it and all over there, and I'm still over there, but I went back to Facebook.
Facebook. Okay.
So yes, it's Tracey Ferrin. I kind of went back there. But really I'm on all of them, TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. I just find myself right now in this season, a little bit more time on Facebook. And you know what? I love, like, I respond to my DMs. So people can feel free to reach out or, DM me. I do not respond to the ones from men or anything like that. They go right to the trash. I delete those. But if I can tell it's a genuine message, I take time to respond. So they can connect with me all on everywhere, really.
Awesome. And make sure everybody listens to the podcast. So anyways, again, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And there you have it, everybody. That was Tracey Ferrin. And isn't she amazing? I was just so excited to have her on here as a guest. I think it'll really help set the tone of, as I said, people being that example of what it looks like to live in alignment with your design, the way you were really designed to show up in the world. And I think she's just doing that absolutely beautifully. And I really hope you enjoyed our little chat. So again, her podcast is called Rock Your Kindness. You can find her on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. She also has her book, Upstruggle. Definitely recommend that. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. And I really look forward to spending time with y'all in the next episode. So until then, take care of yourselves. Bye for now. You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.